Hello, welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Mike Luciano. Mike, I'm back in the confines of my own home. It feels good to be back, and it feels good to be talking about some Jets. We're going to be breaking down the Jets' starting quarterback options in 2025 now that the team has moved on from Aaron Rodgers. We're going to be talking about Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, maybe, Derek Carr, maybe some Cam Ward, Shadeur Sanders. I'm excited. How you feeling, buddy?
A new era is upon us, the Aaron Glenn era. I was optimistic about it. Now we got to find a quarterback, which the Jets, they always do that. They always just stumble ass backwards into quarterback. So it should be perfectly easy. I'm sure Aaron Glenn won't get fired for not finding a quarterback. It'll be smooth sailing,
Sure.
That's always what happens with the Jets.
The Glennaissance is here.
The Glennaissance is here, and it may end up with Tyrod Taylor in 4-13 in year one. But hey, the Glennaissance.
All right, man. We're starting off pessimistic, I see.
Well, this is what happens. This is what happens after Aaron Rodgers. You get pessimistic, Mike. If you want to be pessimistic or optimistic with us, you can do that on YouTube at the Jet Press. You can like the stream. You can subscribe. You can do all that good stuff. It helps us make more great content for you guys, the fans. And you can join our membership, 99 cents. And you get priority reply in their comment section if you want it. So 99 cents gets it there. And for the audio guys, Apple, Google, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there.
For the non-audio folks, for the non-audio folks, do you see my cat in the background? Look how cute he is.
Yeah, we have a special guest, special feline guest here.
Munchkin making an appearance in the background. He's normally sleeping over there, but he's in camera frame today.
The official cat of the Jet Press is.
Oh, yeah. I own two cats, but that's definitely my favorite.
Chief feline expert over there. Well, let's get right into this because this show is going to be all about the quarterbacks. Because no matter what they do in the offseason, even with all this new cap room, it's quarterback time. Once again,
sure.
It can be scary, but it can be fun because who knows what the heck's going to happen. So we have for you.
That we do.
A list of 20 different quarterbacks.
You'd like me to share my screen, Mike?
Yes, because I thought that was the share screen button.
I was like, what are you doing? I got you. I'll share my screen. We put together a tier list. We're going to do something similar to what we did with the head coaches, where we did a tier list of every Jets head coach option. We're going to do a tier list.
That's better.
There it is. We're going to do a tier list.
Last time it was in the other place. Now they're messing stuff around on me here.
I know. I think I changed that. I didn't put it in this. I did it a different thing. Anyway, I put together a tier list. This is a public tier list as well. So much like with the head coach tier list, you guys can make your own tier list. I'm going to drop the link in the chat here. I believe that is the link. Yeah, I'm going to drop that link. There you go. You guys can make your own tier list. It is available. It is public. I would love for people to be sending us their own tier lists. But we're going to go through this. There are 20 different quarterback options on here, ranging from, I would say, relatively realistic and reasonable to, almost on there just as jokes, as memes. I wish these ads wouldn't pop up while we're doing this. I don't know if there's a way to avoid that, but we're just going to have to live with that.
Well, get your flu shot. It's important information. So
yeah, I think it's just going to be there. But yeah, so we got the tier list going. Somebody in chat, OG Jets fan said, "Can I call in?" No, you cannot. But you can type in chat, and we will be sure to respond as much as we can. And again, send us your own tier list.
The modern way of calling in.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start, Justin? At the top, at the bottom?
So I was going to start. I mean, these are arranged in alphabetical order. We could always jump around, but I think we should start with the first guy on this list, which is one of the most.
First name alphabetical order. I'm like, no, it isn't, because Warren's at the beginning.
Yeah, it's first name alphabetical order because those are the file names I saved them as, and then I uploaded them to the thing. But anyway,
fair enough.
Let's start with the first player here, and that is Miami quarterback Cam Ward. There are a few draft prospects on here. There's I think 4 on here. Garrett says no Cousins, Justin. We'll get to Kirk Cousins.
We'll get to him.
Spoiler, I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be S tier. Don't worry. Or probably even A tier. But we will talk about him. Cam Ward. To me, Mike, Cam Ward, I think, is the most interesting quarterback in this class. And honestly, I think the only of the quarterbacks that I would be comfortable taking with like a top 5 pick. And I'm not even just talking from the Jets perspective. I'm talking in general. I think the upside is there with Cam Ward. I think he is one of the most physically talented quarterbacks in this class. Maybe not the most. I might give that nod to Jalen Milroe slightly, but I think Cam Ward is a very talented quarterback who in a lot of classes would be a top pick. Obviously, it's a very weak quarterback class, so there's a very real chance he goes number 1. And I don't think Right now, sitting here, February 19th, as we're recording this, I don't think there's a very high probability that the Jets find a way to land him. And when we're discussing Cam Ward as a possible target for the Jets, there's a couple of discussions to have. One, if he's there at 7, I think that's a home run. And to me, if we're putting him on a tier list, Cam Ward falling to 7, that's borderline S tier for me. That's like best case scenario possible for this offseason. If somehow Cam Ward is there at 7, you run that card and you take him. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, which would mean, hey, you probably got to trade up. And I'm not sure how willing the Jets are going to be. And I'm not sure how willing I would be to give up a ton of assets to move up, especially if it's to number 1 to get Cam Ward. I think that'd be a very different discussion. But as far as a player, as a prospect is concerned, I think he's the only quarterback in this class that I feel comfortable taking with a top 5 pick and being like, this guy could be a franchise quarterback. I think he has top 5, top 10 quarterback potential. Even if he's a work in progress, even if he's a developmental guy, I see the vision with him.
Ward might be the only quarterback I give a first-round grade to in this entire draft. I think he's the only quarterback where if he came out last year, he would have gone in the first round last year. I think some of the other guys are being propped up by the benefit of a weak quarterback class. And I don't think Ward is an amazing prospect by any stretch. I think he's got some problems where he kind of needs to tone it down a little bit in terms of his aggressiveness. He's mobile, but not really like a runner, so you don't really get that aspect for him. The accuracy is there for the most part, but it kind of comes and goes on him, especially when there's pressure. But in terms of what you get, this guy has been a 5-year starter at 3 different schools. As John Mundock says, finally able to make it for the live show. What's up, fellas? We're ranking quarterbacks, John, so it's always a good time when we're doing that. Ward is a 5-year starter, incarnate word at Washington State, and then at Miami. So tons of experience. Well, he has over 150 college touchdowns. Big arm, goes down the field very well. Good improviser when things break down. He reminds me in a way, I don't think he's this mobile, but a little bit of USC Darnold. In a way. Now, I know that might not be good for Jets fans, but as you've seen, you put him in the right situation, Darnold can be kind of okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to trade up for Ward either, just because the Jets already are out one of their third-round picks. They got one back from the Lions this year, but they're out their best one for Devontae Adams. So they're already, strapped for assets there. And with this weak quarterback class, I feel like it might take more to trade up than usual for a quarterback.
Possibly.
So I really don't want to. And if you look at the teams up there, I don't know if the Giants would trade with the Jets. I don't know if the Patriots would trade with the Jets.
I don't think the Titans pass on him. I will make that prediction right now.
See, that's the thing, though. The Titans have said we're going to pass on a generational talent. I don't think Ward is that.
GM speak doesn't mean anything to me, and they could also very easily be like, yes, we believe Cam Ward is a generational talent. Like they can say
they won't be in that position for very long if they think that.
But I don't think that they actually would. I don't know if they believe that or not. I don't believe that, but I think he's the best quarterback in this class. I think the Titans need a QB, and I don't think that they would pass on him. It's a different conversation with Shadeur Sanders, which we'll get to later. It's a very different conversation if it's a Jalen Milroe or a Jackson Dart, who we'll talk about in a bit. But I see the vision with Cam Ward. Like you said, he's a gunslinger. Like he is going to turn the ball over. He's going to take a lot of chances. He is the most exciting quarterback in this class, probably to watch on film.
But if he falls to 7, I am sprinting to the podium to take Cam Ward. Sprinting.
So that's what makes it such an interesting conversation when we're putting him on his tier list, because if he's there at 7, it's S tier, right? I don't think he's going to be there at 7. I think we'll split the difference here, right? I don't think the Jets would consider moving up to 1, and I don't think he falls to 7.
I put him A. I think he's a high A.
I think A is a good call, because let's say he slides to 4-4, right? Let's say he slides to 3 or 4. Maybe the Jets consider moving up. I don't think they'd move up to 1, but maybe they'd consider moving up. And in some hypothetical world, maybe Cam Ward is the Jets quarterback in 2025. And in that world, I'd put it A tier. I'm with you. Cam Ward's an A tier. I think would be one of the most exciting quarterbacks on this list to be the Jets QB next year. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Butch Davis, who was taking a break from coaching Miami and the Cleveland Browns, says Titans' new GM is not tying himself to Cam Ward that early in his tenure. Possibly. But also, if you're a GM and you got the number 1 pick, don't you want to take a quarterback? Don't you want to get your guy?
And I think Cam Ward's a good enough.
Want to tie yourself to Will Levis?
Because here's the thing. This isn't just it's not just a weak QB class. It's a weak class. There are so few top-tier talents in this class. Like if we're saying...
I disagree in the sense I think it's very deep.
No, but how many top end talents? What I'm talking about? How many blue chip talents? If you're going like, I'm not ignoring position value, right? Like Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham, Abdul Carter. That might be it.
Tyler Warren.
I don't think Tyler Warren's in that tier. I don't think he's a blue chip. I wouldn't put him there. I wouldn't put Ted McMillan in that tier. I wouldn't put any of the offensive
Will
linemen.
Campbell, you wouldn't put in that tier?
Not like in a regular draft. You think he'd be like a bona fide top 7, top 8 pick? I don't think so. And that's the thing. I think like since it's not a great not a great draft class overall, unless you're drafting like the only other guys that can go first overall if it's not going to be Cam Ward are Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. I think those are the only guys that make sense to me. And I think they go quarterback, but we'll see. There's a lot of time to discuss that, and we'll get more into draft stuff as we go on. The next player on this list, we don't have to spend a ton of time talking about this guy if we want to keep going in order.
Some of these guys are not going to get War and Peace about them.
Yeah, but the next player is Carson Wentz, who will be a free agent in the offseason.
Oh, dear.
I don't think Carson Wentz is going to get viable starting consideration by most teams. And I also want to say this goes for a lot of players in this list. It's like for a lot of these guys, they're not going to be brought in as definitely the starter because we assume Tyrod Taylor is still going to be here in 2025. If the Jets were to sign Carson Wentz, God forbid, right? If they signed Carson Wentz, they would likely be running a quarterback room of Carson Wentz, Tyrod Taylor, and probably a rookie. That would be my guess in that scenario. Wow. Bad quarterback room.
Yeah.
I'm happy putting Wentz in D tier. I think there's a couple of guys in this list I'd put below him, but I put him
in D. Only I do feel bad for him in general because of how good he used to be, like before he got hurt. He legitimately almost won an MVP before he got hurt.
He did. It's crazy. His fall has been nuts.
Well, the thing too is I thought he was good with the Colts too. I thought he was pretty good, but we saw him in Washington basically try to be this, and he was bad at it. And I think he could just stay in Kansas City and just be the backup forever and just keep going. He could be their new Chet Henne. That's a pretty good gig.
And there's also been stuff in the past, and I don't know how much credence to put into it, but about him maybe not being loved by all of his teammates and kind of rubbing people the wrong way. And I don't know. I don't get the sense that the Jets would want to bring in a Carson Wentz into their quarterback room.
Will they want to bring in a Daniel Jones, though, is the question.
Will they want to bring in a Daniel Jones, who is next on our list? That was a late addition. I threw him on there because he's going to be one of the most, I don't want to say one of the best, but one of the most notable quarterbacks available this offseason. He will be a free agent. Again, this is likely not going to happen. The outrage that I honestly, out of every quarterback on this list,
Daniel Jones might get people the most mad.
I think there'd be the most outrage maybe with Daniel Jones, just because we saw him fail with the other New York team, with the Giants so recently. I think he's D tier.
He might be F.
He could be. You could sell me on him being F. Is he real? But is he a worse quarterback than Carson Wentz?
If he's the starter, that's a tough.
Honestly, just for vibes, I'm fine putting him in F.
Didn't he go a year without throwing a touchdown pass at home?
I think so. Yeah, he didn't do it last year. I'm fine putting it, honestly, just for pure vibes, F tier. Because,
you can't.
You just can't.
Aaron Glenn would lose all that goodwill so fast.
Correct. Imagine, again, I'm far from a Rodgers defender, but imagine moving on from Aaron Rodgers, who can still play. He's fine. And trying to sell your locker room on Daniel Jones. You just and sell the fans. You just can't do that. The next guy.
Now we're talking Derek Carr.
Now we get into a very interesting conversation, which is Derek Carr. I think Carr is one of the best options for the Jets if he were to shake free. Still a solid starting quarterback. I think he's in the same tier as Aaron Rodgers right now. And then the added benefit is, as we've talked about in the past, as others have mentioned, if there's any quarterback that the Jets can go out and target that you might have a chance of salvaging the Devontae Adams relationship and keeping him around in 2025, it's Derek Carr. Derek Carr and Devontae Adams obviously were teammates at Fresno State. Adams went to Vegas to play with Carr, and it didn't last very long. But I think there's a world where the Jets bring in Derek Carr, assuming he's released by the Saints this offseason, which is also not a given. There's no guarantee that the Saints, who I genuinely still don't know what their direction is going to be, and I'm not sure they do as an organization. But if they finally decide to blow it up and try and salvage their cap, they probably move on from Derek Carr. And if that happens, he's going to become one of the best quarterbacks on the market in a very weak QB market. I'm happy putting him maybe A tier. I don't know about you, Mike.
I might go a little higher.
You're thinking S tier.
Derek Carr only got sacked 8 times last year.
8 times.
8 times he got sacked last
How
year.
many games did he play?
10.
10. That's good. Very good.
In terms of adjusted net yards per attempt, which takes into account like sacks and penalties and all that, dude, he was 4th. It was Goff, Lamar, and Josh Allen were ahead of him.
Carr's a solid quarterback. Like, Carr is honestly.
I thought the Saints gave him very little last year. He had very few receivers. Offensive line had a bunch of kids on it. Lame duck coaching staff. That wasn't a great situation.
Even in his prime, like, Derek Carr to me has been one of the most frustrating quarterbacks of the last 10, 15 years because he's like very physically gifted. He's a very physically, even at this stage of his career, he's still a very physically talented quarterback. It's the tentativeness with him. Like he's afraid to take hits all the time. I hate to use the phrase, but he's a check down merchant. He does not take advantage.
Jacob says no with a bunch of O's. Might I ask why?
Right. So here's the thing. Every quarterback we talk about, people are going to be like, oh, this guy sucks. Yeah. Look, when we're putting Derek Carr in A or S tier, it's on a curve. Like, we're not going to be able, the Jets can't go out and get Lamar Jackson this offseason. They can't go out and get Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow or CJ Stroud.
I'd love to. It'd be
great, but they're not going to be able to do that. And they're not in a position to draft a super high profile one, which is why we talked about Cam Ward. We put him as A tier because he's not exactly a bulletproof quarterback prospect, but he's at least got that ceiling. Derek Carr has the reputation. He has the clout to be able to, you could bring him in and you're like, okay, we're trying to win this year. We have a proven veteran quarterback who is a solid player, who is really, in my opinion, not a step down from the quarterback you had in the room last year. Now, I don't know what he would command on the open market. I think that would be a discussion to have. I genuinely don't even have a guess as to what his market might be if he were to shake free. But just in terms of pure performance based, I think he's A tier. I don't know if I'm ready for S. I don't know if there's even an S tier guy on this list. Like,
I feel like he might be him or maybe Stafford. Like, those are the only two I would even consider for S.
I have an interesting take on Stafford. I don't even know if he's A tier. And there's nothing to do with
the other good thing about Carr, though, is this last year he got hurt and missed like 7 games. Before that, in his entire career, he had missed 4 starts.
Yeah.
Durable guy.
Tough as hell.
You could pencil him in for 66% completion, around 4,000 yards, 22 or 3 touchdowns, and like 9-10 picks. You could pencil that in every single year.
I don't know.
And the Jets don't get that from quarterbacks very often.
Is this a weird take? Derek Carr is who people like, or people on Twitter try to think Justin Herbert is, like, where it's like, oh, he's a box score quarterback, right? Like, that's Derek Carr. I don't think is ever going to be, especially at this stage of his career, but even at his peak, like, apart from like the one really amazing year he had with the Raiders, he was never a top 5, 6, 7 quarterback in the NFL. I think he was top.
But I will say, I feel bad for him in the sense, I mean, look at the teams he's played, like the organizations he's played for.
Oh, for sure.
Salary cap hell Saints, John Gruden, Henry Ruggs, no defense ever rated. I believe he's never had a defense ranked higher than like 20th. And he's played like 11 years. That seems on purpose almost.
Yeah.
As Butch Davis says, he is against Carr, though. He can't extend a play to save his life, so how much do you value mobility? I value mobility. I also think the Jets have one of the better young offensive lines in the AFC. They're going to have 4 of their guys locked in. If Morgan Moses comes back, that's 5. That should, in my opinion, it gives me a little bit of confidence in Carr producing behind that. And you know what? He got sacked 8 times in 10 games last year. He knows how to get rid of the ball and deliver it accurately. If Rodgers, part of why he was good was he held on to the ball for very long. But Carr, it's 1, 2, 3, boom, out. And there's problems with that. But also, I feel like he's a good, reliable, won't turn the ball over for a defensive coach in year 1. And you give him Carr and Devontae. When's he had Garrett Wilson and Devontae, excuse me. When has he ever had Garrett Wilson and Devontae as his wide receivers together? That is something he hasn't been afforded his entire career. I don't want to get too excited about him, but I'm seeing a lot of like Geno Smith in Seattle parallels where he's finally in the best situation for him and then he really takes off.
Maybe. I think I'm higher on Geno for sure than Derek Carr. And even if, Derek Carr would have come to the Jets with a good offensive line, possibly a good offensive staff, we'll see. It's at least should be better than it's been the last couple of years.
Hard not to be.
Right. And then Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams and Breece Hall and whatever they do with the 7th overall pick. I can get excited about it. I think the best description that I've seen of Derek Carr, and this is what's always been, I don't know if it's a gripe that I have with him, but he's a very, very talented quarterback. But he's basically like, if you took someone with that skill set and you just put it into like a regular dude and you drop them in an NFL pocket, like that's kind of how I feel like when I'm watching Derek Carr. I'm just like, the pocket presence isn't there. He feels like, I feel like he plays scared. He plays like a skate. Like
the pocket presence isn't there, but he also is like a great sack avoider. He's learned.
He yes and no. I mean, yes and no. Like I think I don't know exactly the point I'm trying to make with Derek Carr. I don't love watching him play, is what I'm trying to say. Maybe that's what it is. I think I'm biased towards not liking watching him play.
But it works. Statistically, it works kind of.
I think he would put together one of the best seasons that a Jets quarterback has in a long time if he was their quarterback. I also think they'd win 7 games. And that's fine. And that's okay. I think he's A tier for me. That's good. I would push back on S tier, though.
Even if we don't put anyone up there in S tier, I feel like there's only 2 guys I would consider S, and he's one of them. So I'm going with the highest A you can give.
We'll consider moving him up to S at the end. I have a different guy that I was considering for S, but we'll get to him just for, I think, vibes. But we'll get to that after. Next, let's talk about as I reshare my screen. Let's talk about the next guy on this list. So we're going to go from a very realistic and appealing option, Derek Carr, to a guy who I don't think many people would expect to even be on this list. It was mentioned, I believe, Rodney Harrison threw his name out there. We're talking about Hendon Hooker, who is the 3rd string quarterback of the Detroit Lions. I don't really have much to say about Hendon Hooker. He's F tier for me. What is he, 26, 27? He has a serious injury history.
Never played.
Not played at the NFL level, I think, at all or barely at all. I have no idea why this would even be an option, but we threw him on there just because Rodney Harrison mentioned him. And
it's an option because Tanner Engstrand coached him up.
Right. And obviously he has the ties to the Detroit coaching staff. And sure, if they want a guy who knows the system, this
amazing system we don't even know if it's good yet.
He's F tier for me. I'd have him below Wentz legitimately.
Yeah. He would have been D for me if they didn't sign Teddy Bridgewater out of coaching high school football to play over him.
Right.
And then he could have got into the playoffs and they put in Bridgewater. As Connor Long donates $10, tomorrow morning's coffee is on me. You guys are the best. Keep up the great work.
Oh man, Connor, we appreciate it, buddy.
You're the GOAT, man. That you're paying for a lot of iced tea. I have a bunch of those Arizona 99-cent cans in my fridge right now. You were paying for a lot of those. So thank you, Connor. You're the best.
Much appreciated, Connor. Definitely check out Connor. He does amazing work as well on YouTube. Definitely check out his stuff. Always appreciated, buddy. But yeah, Hendon Hooker, F tier is fine with me. I don't think there's much else to discuss with him.
If he didn't get hurt, it might have been interesting, but I can't take old, hurt, and hasn't played. I could take maybe 2 of them. I could.
Hey, don't spoil our Jordan Travis segment. All right. Anyway.
Oh, dear. All right. Jacoby Brissett, another name here.
Exciting option. My take on Jacoby Brissett is the Jets already have 1 Tyrod Taylor. They don't need a second. That's my take on
That's
Jacoby.
why Jacoby Brissett I'd put in F, because it's like, what are we doing?
I was gonna say D, but
he was on. I mean, look at how I know Drake May is a rookie hype, but like, look at the difference. We saw that Thursday night game. I mean, he could barely do anything.
But then he also, like, I look at his Browns tape and I'm like, hey, look, he was good with Cleveland. Like, he was actually a serviceable quarterback with them.
Well, what happened last year?
I don't know, man. He was also shit with the Dolphins, so I don't really know. Like, he's weird. I guess I'm fine.
Old is quite a thing to say about Hendon Hooker. Yeah, he's our age, but
yeah, it's relative. What is he? Is he 26, Hendon Hooker, right now?
Well, a 3rd-year player.
Yeah, he's 27. He's
to be 27 as a 3rd-year player.
He's already turned 27. Penei Sewell is 3 years younger than Hendon Hooker, which is ridiculous to say. Somehow Danielle Hunter is probably still younger than that was always like the
Tremaine Edmonds.
Tremaine Edmonds. That's always the barometer. How old is Tremaine Edmonds? He might be younger.
Tremaine Edmonds is 26.
Yes, Tremaine Edmonds is younger than Hendon Hooker.
A full year younger than Hendon Hooker, and Tremaine Edmonds is starting year 8. That's insane.
That is nuts. I mean, look, I'd put Brissett in D tier, but I'm also not gonna fight you if you say F tier. I'm fine. He's the top of F tier.
More draft stuff. Here we go.
This is an interesting one. We're going to talk about Jalen Milroe next. Jalen Milroe is the next player in this list. Let's have a conversation about Jalen Milroe because
is his stock fallen lately.
It has. To me, he's still my third favorite quarterback in this class. I still like him more than Jackson Dart. I think the upside is there with Milroe, and that's what I care about when it comes to quarterback prospects mostly. I think he's a massive work in progress and is not somebody that I would have any interest in taking in round 1. But day 2, if you're going to take a swing on any quarterback in this class, I like Milroe. I think he's the most physically talented quarterback in this class. He is more of a runner than Cam Ward is. He's a true dual threat, and the arm talent is there as well. The issues is everything else. He's just
okay. What a sales pitch.
There's a reason that his stock has fallen a lot. It's because the accuracies are a concern. The decision making is a concern. I get
the quarterback stuff. You mean?
Correct. And this is a bad quarterback class, Mike. I'm not advocating for Jalen Milroe as A tier. And if Jalen Milroe is the week 1 starting quarterback for the Jets next year, I mean, I guess I'd be intrigued. I'd be like, whoa, how did he win the starting job? Something happened. But I'd also be like, oh, man, they could win 3 games. Like, this could completely bottom out. But I see the vision with him as a developmental guy where, like, in a perfect world, you bring him in, and I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson because he's not going to be Lamar Jackson, but you treat him kind of like the Ravens treated Lamar Jackson as a rookie. Maybe you give him some packages on offense and see if he can do some things. I think the most likely scenario is he does not develop into a viable NFL quarterback, but I think there's a world out there where he does. And if he does, I think he could be a very good player. In this quarterback class where there's just like, there's very few guys with upside. I even the developmental guys, the mid-round guys, like, boy, I don't care about Will Howard. I'm sorry. I don't care about Kyle McCord. I just, they're not going to be great starting quarterbacks. Milroe's probably
I could see maybe sneaking into day 2, but the other ones are not.
McCord might, just because it's a bad class. And like, sure, he could be maybe a serviceable fringe starter. Like, he's Gardner Minshew. Fine. Awesome.
He's a weird player in that, like, he's not amazing at anything, but he's also, like, not bad at anything. He's like a 6 out of 10 everywhere.
You know what? Every generation needs their Colt McCoy, and that's okay. And Kyle McCord can be that. He could be your Brian Hoyer, and that's fine. He's going to probably
I was talking about Will Howard mostly. But
yeah. Will Howard, same thing. Honestly, same conversation with both of them. Howard's probably maybe a little more mobile than McCord. Neither of them.
Bigger, too, but yeah.
Bigger. But like, they're both in that same tier for me. Milroe, at least you have the upside, and that's why I'm fine with him at either low B or high C. I think is where I'd put him.
The problem with Milroe, and even guys, I don't want to say like when Cam went 1. I think Cam went 1. Maybe that kind of led to a lot of people saying like, "Hey, let's bet on the trait and stuff like that."
The Trey Lance. The difference between that and a guy like an Anthony Richardson, who I'm still not giving up on, I don't care, is their traits are all-time outlier good. I mean, Anthony Richardson was 245 running a 4.4 and throwing the ball 200 yards. Remember that Michael Vick Powerade commercial where he would the guy be running routes and Michael Vick would throw a route to a guy and he'd catch it and he'd knock 20 yards back. He's at the Coliseum and then he'd be all right. That sounds like Anthony Richardson.
He'd be like, all right, go deep. And then Michael Vick throws it deep and he throws it out of Coliseum because he's on Powerade.
Sure.
That's Anthony Richardson.
Powerade sponsor us.
It's what Jalen Milroe defenders think he could be. He's a weird player. He has 32 rushing touchdowns in his career, 39 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And the problem I have with him, because again, great athlete, not good, great athlete.
Exceptional.
Big, strong, elusive runner, good arm. I thought the offense he was in last year wasn't the best fit for him stylistically. But it's one thing to be a good quarterback and then be a good runner, like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback and he's an insane runner. Josh Allen's a good quarterback and a good runner. The problem with Milroe, and before the last 2 years Jalen Hurts, was I thought they were better runners than they were passers. Now Hurts has since evolved as a passer. If you're drafting a franchise quarterback and it's, well, he can run and we need to work on him as a passer, that's where I fall apart. If he's going to succeed, you need to bring him to a team with a very experienced coaching staff and a very creative coaching staff. Honestly, if you went to the Raiders in the second round, that might be cool. Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll.
Sure.
That's a good landing spot for him.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Jets with a defensive rookie head coach, rookie OC, might have to play right away anyway. Locker room is chomping at the bit to win game. It's just not the right fit for him. So I think he's my quarterback 4 this year behind Dart. And he might be like a low round 2 guy, Milroe, bordering on round 3, just because
it's fair.
There's so much work to make him be a quarterback. And it's not like Anthony Richardson where you can just luck into these insanely outlier good traits physically and arm strength wise. He doesn't have that. So that's why I'm going to put him maybe like C tier, because it's going to be so much work. And are the Jets really going to commit there? Or is Aaron Glenn going to commit his head coaching tenure to Jalen Milroe? I can't see that.
I think you sold me on C tier. Because I'm trying to think of like what this offense might look like. Yeah. And if it's looking anything like what Detroit's offense looked like last year, I don't know if you could find a quarterback who's more different than Jared Goff than Jalen Milroe. They could not be more polar opposites of players. So I'm fine putting him as high C tier. We could do that. And,
Jacob says, I think an underrated prospect could be Tyler Shaw. Yes, but he's got Hendon Hooker thing where he old, hurt.
Yeah.
And he had his one good year in college when he's 24. You know, that's a tough stuff. He'll get drafted, but I'm just not too high on him.
He's another day 3 guy.
He's a day 3 guy. A good day 3 guy, but a day 3 guy.
Yeah. We're going to probably go on a run of a few not amazing options.
You want to do Dart just to wrap up the
I'm cool. Draft. We'll skip Jameis. We'll do Jackson Dart, who's I would say the fastest rising quarterback in this class. He has become, it seems like, almost near unanimous QB3. There has been conversations about him possibly going not only first round, but like top 10. I've seen that discourse, and you never know. Look, it's February. If you would have said last February that Bo Nix and Michael Penix were both going top 15, I don't think most people would have thought that. So you never know what could happen. I don't know what will happen. What I'm going to say, though, is what should happen. And if the Jets draft Jackson Dart in the first round, I will be a very unhappy person. I don't see the vision with Jackson Dart. I look, man, and this is the same conversation I remember having last year about JJ McCarthy. If the first thing you're saying about him is, oh, he's a tough guy, he's gritty. Like, I'm just like,
see, it's not the first thing I'm saying about.
That's the first thing I see a lot of people say about Jackson Dart.
Coach Davis says Dart is smart. Yes, he is.
This is furthering what I'm saying here. I don't see the physical upside with him. I think he could be a fine quarterback, possibly. When I don't see the physical upside in terms of the traits, and he comes from an Ole Miss offense, which, it wasn't Baylor Bryce Petty levels of being phony of an offense, but it was a pretty phony offense. And if you come from that system and you don't really have a physical upside that I can see, I'm not going to be excited about you as a quarterback prospect. I could buy him as a day 2 guy, as a dart throw, no pun intended.
Oh, come on.
That was not intended. That was a genuine comment. But how
many times is he going to throw a touchdown and the announcer's going to go, oh, what a dart throw that was.
Yeah, it's a dart. That's honestly
Iron Eagle, dart throw.
Just for that D tier. I think he's
acting like we're going to be good enough to get an Iron Eagle game. We're going to be on Spiro Deeds for the next 2 years.
Adam Archuleta.
We're going to hear a lot of him.
Yeah, I think he's C tier for me. I'm not excited about him as a prospect. If they took him first round, D tier. I would be real upset about that, especially if they took him at 7th overall pick. I'd be 7th overall pick. He's F tier. Trade down first round, D tier. Take him on day 2, C tier. That's where I land on him.
See, I would put Dart in my own B tier. I've become very sold on Dart, only because
sell me on Jackson Dart.
I was with you on the fake offense stuff until the biggest reason for that was their offensive coordinator was Jeff Lebby, who was like a Baylor or Bryles. It was that, and he just brought it to Ole Miss. He's not there anymore, and they still do some of that, but there are a lot of college offenses that I think are either similar or more. Like, I think Cam Ward's offense is probably a little more pro-style than Dart, but it's not that much.
I agree.
They have a lot. Now, Dart, the negatives with him are I don't love his deep accuracy, even though he has 11 yards per attempt as a thrower, which is insane. Mm-hmm. Don't love his deep accuracy. He can get a little, like you hit him, he gets a little spooked. He succeeded Zach Wilson as the high school quarterback at his high school. So they went from Zach Wilson to Jackson Dart at that particular high school.
Low-key, and they both were number 2. And low-key kind of look a little similar when they were wearing that jersey. I'm just like, is that Zach Wilson under there?
They did a little bit. And while he's mobile, I don't really think he's like a running, like Ward. I don't think he's a running threat. And yeah, I think he really only had the 1 year in the pro adjacent system.
Mm-hmm.
And he does have a lot of experience in the old bad offense, the Matt Corral offense that's not NFL football. But also Lincoln Riley's offense isn't NFL football. And Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and Caleb Williams all came out of that. And that's a very similar thing, in my opinion, schematically.
I think
the pros on Dart are actually, Sam has a good point. If he loses, they're going to start calling him Jackson Fart. I don't like that either.
Okay.
But
we're resorting to toilet humor on the Jet Press podcast.
We are. The creator of the Woody Awards.
I guess I shouldn't.
Now is too highbrow and too highfalutin for that crass humor. But the good things about Dart, you scout the player, not the helmet. That's why they drafted Mahomes despite Texas Tech. You draft the player, not the helmet. Intermediate and short, dead-eye accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Like his ability to scramble. I think he might be the best intermediate thrower in this class because that's where a lot of his big chunk plays came from. The arm strength is there. I think it's probably slightly above average. The biggest thing that sold me, because Dart and Milroe were very even on my board, and I know Senior Bowl practices can lie to you sometimes. From what I saw there,
James Morgan
wasn't at the Senior Bowl.
He was Shrine Bowl. He was
Shrine Bowl. The Senior Bowl, it was Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, who was not good at the Senior Bowl that year.
Right.
And I think Shea Patterson was there, and Jordan Love. Jordan Love was on the other team too. Jordan Love was
good. Speaking of Ole Miss quarterbacks, Shea Patterson.
But those two, Milroe looked very scattershot, which was the concern. Dart was boom, 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 accurate. He might have been the best quarterback there, right up against Milroe and a lot of the other guys. I wouldn't like Dart in the first round either. I think if you trade up to like the end, like if you trade up to like 30, 31 and get him, as opposed to waiting at 37, it's like, well, who cares, in my opinion? Like that's 6 and 1, half a dozen the other. I would prefer Ward or some of the other quarterbacks out there, but if it comes down to like Dart or Milroe, it's like a Geno Smith thing. We're going to pick our guy high second round. I am very firmly in Dart over Milroe. I get the concern, so C might be okay, but he'd definitely have to be above Milroe for me, and I'd put him in my like low end of B.
I'm fine with C tier. I'm fine with C tier. I think the projection you're hoping, I think he needs to go to a good offense for starters. Obviously, that's of any quarterback. But I think you're hoping he can have a Brock Purdy like breakout, because nobody thought Brock Purdy obviously would be anything near what he is now. And I still don't think he's like an incredible quarterback, but I think he's a lot better than people had given him credit for in the past. I think he's a solid quarterback. And a lot of that was because he was really developed in San Francisco. And I think I can see shades of Purdy in Dart's game, at least a little bit.
Baker Mayfield with like 15% worse arm strength.
Yeah, I guess.
Baker just threw 40 touchdowns this year. So
I think Gardner Minshew for him as well makes sense too. He's not an amazing arm, but it's good enough to be NFL caliber. Not like an unbelievable athlete, but he can move.
And the floor is certainly better for
the floor.
Yeah.
I also think Dart is going to be an NFL quarterback. Like I think he's going to make it in the league. I don't know if he'll be a long-term starter or a franchise guy. And that's the thing. That's the only reason I have Milroe ahead of him in my mind, because I don't know if Milroe is going to be a viable NFL quarterback, but I know he has a chance to be great. I don't think Jackson Dart has a chance to be great. And I don't really care about drafting a guy whose ceiling is the 14th, 13th best quarterback in the league. That never really intrigues me. Milroe, I think there's a chance he's a top 8 quarterback. I don't think there's a high probability, but I think there's a chance. But I'm fine. I'm fine going C tier for Dart. It's, I'll even put him, I'll throw you a bone. I'll put him ahead of Milroe. We can basically say that they're tied there. That's not all the draft guys, though. If you want to finish the draft, there is one more draft guy we can talk about. He's towards the end here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's put a little ribbon on that. And I'm talking about upside, and I think this is a great conversation to have about Shadeur Sanders, because I'm not a huge Shadeur Sanders fan. I think I've gotten a little bit more. I've softened on my stance on him a little bit lately. I get why people like him. The accuracy is there. He's probably the most accurate quarterback in this class. He's the most pro-ready quarterback in this class, even though he comes from a Colorado system where, the offensive line was really bad and he was running on, standing on his head a lot of the time. But I think he did a lot of things for that program and kind of put them back on the map. Obviously Dion did too, but Shadeur was a big part of that. I get why people like him. I don't think he's going to ever be a star quarterback, but I think he's going to be a starting quarterback. And I think right now, if I'm making a very early prediction for offensive player or offensive rookie of the year, if it's not Ashton Genty, Shadeur Sanders makes the most sense to me because he's the only quarterback in this class that I think is like ready to start week one. Cam Ward might end up starting depending on where he goes, but I don't know if he's ready per se. Sanders is ready. You can put Sanders in an NFL offense right now, and I think he will run it fine. The weaknesses with him, I think he is not an amazing athlete. The arm talent is not amazing. His arm strength is really great. It's fine. Again, it's passable. Like, it's not disqualifying him for being an NFL quarterback. And then also, I know the Colorado offensive line was bad. Like, it was very bad. He invited a lot of that pressure himself, too. There was a stat I saw earlier, I think it was earlier this week from PFF. He, out of every quarterback in this class, he had the most pressures and sacks attributed to him of any quarterback in this draft class, which, you know, again, Colorado offensive line was bad. And I think that really affected the way that he played because he would start trying to escape from the pocket and make plays outside of structure probably earlier than he should. That's stuff that potentially could get corrected at the NFL level. I think the absolute ceiling for him, which has been thrown out there when you're talking about, hey, can he ever be an elite quarterback? You're talking about the guys like, because he's not going to be a Josh Allen. He's not going to be a Lamar Jackson. He's just not that type of player. You're hoping he somehow could be a Joe Burrow. I don't think he can. But if you're looking at like an NFL projection at an absolute highest level, Burrow, CJ Stroud, like guys who are not elite athletes, that don't necessarily have otherworldly arm talent. Although I think Stroud's arm is good. I think he gets underrated there. It's good.
Do people really think Stroud doesn't have a strong arm?
I think it's because he's just like a traditional pocket passer. So people are like,
he doesn't really gun it, but like
he doesn't have he's not as flashy as Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or even like a Jordan Love, but he has a good arm. I think that's what you're hoping he could be. I don't know if he will ever be that, but he's solid. He's a good quarterback, and I think he will be a good NFL player. I wouldn't love him with the 7th pick, though, because I just don't think the ceiling is there. And that's where I stand on Shadeur.
You are inviting, not his fault, you're inviting a lot of media attention, unwanted.
That's the other part of it.
That he's going to bring with him.
Outside of his performance and who he is as a prospect, that's another aspect.
Know the first time that he starts struggling, Deion's going to talk shit about the coaching. You know that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't love a guy who's kind of thin. He looks like he's listed at 215. He looks like he's like 190. He looks very skinny to me.
Yeah.
Not a great athlete, holds the ball a lot. That concerns me. But tremendous football brain, knows what it takes to be great in the NFL because his dad did it. And I think that's something you got to consider. Like, he knows the grind and what it takes. I would say I like the accuracy a lot, actually. As Brian says, you thought bandwagon BYU fans were bad. Oh, yeah.
Can we stay away from the Rocky Mountain states? Can we just...
Yeah, let's let no more quarterbacks from the Midwest.
Yeah.
Only east of the Mississippi quarterbacks and maybe California.
No. After the Darnold, no, we can't do California.
Yeah, good point. Everywhere they got a failure too.
Yeah, Sanchez, USC as well.
Sanchez was USC. Oh, yeah, so no California.
Where did Kellen Clemens go to school again?
He went to Oregon. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, no, West Coast. We can't do it.
You can't do West Coast. So they're soft over there. No. He's a guy, he's very Jimmy G coded to me, where gets the ball where it needs to go, accurate, smart decision maker, not going to turn the ball over a lot. The upside question, we're talking about the upside with Dart. I'm having some of that same upside question with Sanders. And at least I think Dart moves around a little bit better. I would like him at 7. I'd be happy with him at 7. The problem is there's a lot of, like, if he starts struggling, there's going to be a lot of problems that I don't want Aaron Glenn to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not his fault, and it's not Deion's fault. But I don't know, like, doesn't that just feel like a powder keg? Shadeur in New York.
Yeah, especially when the Jets just dealt with 2 years of Aaron Rodgers, and that
you would think now is stability. Now is calm. Ideally, the only people we want to hear from are Aaron Glenn,
and that sucks because it's not Shadeur's fault. Like
it's not his fault. And again, like without the big arm, especially playing in New England, Buffalo, New York late in the year, I worry about that. But accuracy that's important.
It is.
And there is no more accurate thrower. There probably is no better football brain processor in this class than Shadeur. That's why he's in my B tier.
Yeah, I'm fine putting him B tier. I think he should be above Milroe and Dart. Obviously, he's a better prospect than both of them, so I think B tier is fine for me. I wouldn't get excited about him, and I would fear about the thought of, oh, we're just going to be stuck with a mid quarterback, which is the worst place you could be in, arguably in the NFL, like being stuck with a. Do I say a Tua Tagovailoa? Do I do that? Because I could see some comparisons between those guys. Tua is another quick processor, extremely accurate quarterback.
Right-handed Tua is not a bad comparison.
It's not. Shadeur doesn't have the injury history that Tua does, but like you said, he's a little lean. He holds onto the ball for a lot, which does scare me at the NFL level. But yeah, I think B tier is fine with Shadeur. I think that could put a nice little bow on our draft segment. That's also our first B tier. So we now officially a quarterback in every tier except S. And I don't know if we're going to get an S, but let's run through a few of these names because there's a few coming up right now. If we go back to the start of this, that I don't think are going to be viable options and options that we have to talk a lot about. One guy who I think is at least somebody who deserves a little bit of discourse is Jameis Winston, who's the next guy here. I don't think there's a ton to say about Jameis Winston that has not already been said. You know what you're getting with Jameis Winston. You are getting a high
known quantity here.
Yes, you are getting a high variance quarterback who will turn the ball over a lot, who will have games where he probably throws for 4 touchdowns and 350 yards, but then he'll also have games where he throws for 95 yards and 3 picks. Like that is what he does. That is who he has always been, dating back to his days as a starter with Tampa. That's who he is. And if that's somebody you want to bring in your quarterback room, he's a polar opposite to Tyrod Taylor, who's a very high floor quarterback. So I don't mind the blend of those two. We're going to ignore, or we don't have to ignore, but we won't necessarily talk about, I guess, the off-field stuff with Winston and his history. I don't know if that'll be factored into the Jets' decision-making, but in terms of who he is,
anybody else's, it seems.
Right. But in terms of who he is, I think it's fine because I think I would put him either low B or high C because to me, he is a different quarterback than Tyrod Taylor. And if you're looking at Tyrod as your quarterback and Winston in your QB room as well, that makes sense to me because they're opposite players. I think that's fine. I wouldn't be opposed to Jameis Winston as the
low B only because if I told you of all the players listed here, there's a good chance he would end up with the most touchdown passes at the end of the year. Is that outrageous?
No, it's not. Even with Matthew Stafford on this list, that's not outrageous.
That's not. It's unlikely, but it could happen. So that's why it's B. Because I mean, the production everywhere he's gone has been there. You get the picks. Yeah. You don't get a ton of posting success, but you get production.
Yeah, he had a 30 season with Tampa, right? He had 30 touchdowns, 30 picks in here with the Bucs. Like that's what he does. That
5,000 yards too.
Yep, that is who he is.
I don't know if he coach for him, Bruce Arians. It was the perfect combination.
Look, Jameis Winston, he would be a hilarious quarterback. Like imagine Jets fans having discourse about Jameis Winston playing. Like I think that'd be so
Tampa
fun.
Jameis, you mean?
Even present day Jameis Winston, like whatever he does, like if he starts a full 17 game season for the Jets next year and throws for 25 touchdowns and 23 picks, like the discourse around him is going to be
7 and 10 again.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a very funny dialogue. So I'm fine putting him B tier. The next few guys in this list, probably not a lot of conversation. I threw Joe Flacco in there. This was my last addition to the list. Because we I wanted an even 20. Flacco's F tier, but he's a fun F tier. He's a meme F tier. I would find it hilarious if the Jets went into 2025.
I wouldn't. I'd be frothing with rage, but yeah,
hilarious,
sure.
Hilarious in a bad way, as opposed to Daniel Jones being hilarious in a terrible way. Daniel Jones or Joe Flacco, Tyrod Taylor, and a rookie, and Jordan Travis being your quarterback room is objectively awful, but I could see it being funny. And look,
I love how he was Anthony Richardson's backup. Can he get 2 more different?
I know
quarterbacks.
It's really funny, and he can still. He's not completely awful. He's still. I think he's a backup caliber quarterback. Like he's
even still.
Yeah, which is crazy because he's gonna be 40 years old, or he's already 40.
He is 40.
He is already 40 years old. Yeah. It would be really funny going from Rodgers and we got to get younger. We got to get younger at the position, so they get a 1 year younger at Flacco.
Technically younger.
Technically correct, which is the best type of correct. So we're gonna say Flacco. I can't put him top. We'll put Brissett ahead of him, but I'll put him ahead of Hendon Hooker. So Flacco F tier. Next one, another guy that I threw on there. If we have Hendon Hooker on this list, we have to
put Joe Milton on, I guess.
We have to put Joe Milton on there. Joe Milton, I like Joe Milton a lot in last year's draft class. And this is when I will continue to use the word when I talk about quarterback prospects. there's upside with Joe Milton. There is clear, obvious upside. He is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the entire NFL, and I truly believe that in terms of physical, raw talent. Now,
listen to hypocrite Justin over here giving Jackson Dart shit for that offense, and then not a peep about Joe Milton because from Tennessee, which is worse, I would argue.
Listen, Jackson Dart run a what did Milton? Milton didn't run the 40, did he? But if he did, he'd probably run a 4 or 5 something at like 240 pounds or whatever he is, while also being able to chuck it 90 yards down the field. Can Jackson Dart do that? I don't think so.
He ran a 4.62. Joe Milton.
Yeah. That's at his size with that arm. That's crazy. Obviously, look, let's being realistic. Joe Milton, the Patriots are not going to trade Joe Milton to the Jets. If they do trade him, they're not going to trade him in the division. And I don't think the Patriots are going to trade him for anything less than, like a 3rd round pick. You think they probably take for him right now? And I don't think the Jets or really any team is probably going to want to do that based off of a 1-game sample size from last year where he did good. But it'd be fun. It's fun enough for me to say D tier. I don't know what you think about that. It's fun enough for me to say he'd be ahead of the other guys just because I'd have a blast with Joe Milton in the Jets.
Put him D, sure.
We're arguing trash and garbage here. Like,
as Brian Sternbeck says with a nice anecdote on Flacco, Tyrod began his career as Flacco's backup.
True.
Forgot about that. Yeah, with Baltimore.
Passing of the torch 13 years later from their days in Baltimore. That'd be crazy to look at a side-by-side of Tyrod and Flacco back in when was Tyrod drafted?
2011 he got picked.
2011, 6th round pick, yeah.
Jordan Travis. We got to do this.
All right, we'll put Jordan Travis now. I don't want to do this to him. I think he's the lowest F tier on this list.
Not his fault.
It's not his fault.
He can't walk now. He can't do it.
He's not a know
if he's on the team.
There's a better chance.
Shout out Butch Davis for the $10 super chat. Thank you, Butch.
Oh, what a guy. Thank you so much.
What a guy, Butch Davis. Thank you for being very successful at Miami. I'm sorry the Browns tenure didn't go the way you wanted it to, but you know what? Thank you for your generous donation, Butch.
Always appreciate it, folks. I was excited for the stream too because I love doing tier lists. I want to do a couple more of these before we get to the draft. But hey, I think Jordan Travis there's a much better chance that he is not on the Jets week 1 roster than that he is a legitimate starting candidate in 2025. I think his best case scenario is he gets healthy first because he's still not, to our knowledge, like he's not practiced yet. They never literally have not seen him on the field. He was supposed to be ready by training camp. He had at least 1 setback, possibly multiple. And by the time the season ended, he was still not back with the team. And now we're going into another season with a new regime. Hopefully he's ready for OTAs, and a best case scenario is he shows out in OTAs, does well in the summer, and earns the QB3 job. That's, I think, a best case scenario. And if we're talking about that as a best case scenario, and we're talking about a tier list of Jets starting quarterback options, to me that means you're F tier.
Even if Jordan Travis didn't get hurt, he was a 6-year college player who wasn't like great until his last year and a half, and he's smaller, doesn't have a great arm, even without the injury.
I hate the narrative that I've seen some Jets fans say, like, oh, if he didn't get hurt, he would have been a 1st-round pick.
No, he wouldn't have.
No, he wouldn't have. Like
he would have been like a 3rd-round pick, maybe, right. But not a 1st.
He was possibly a day 2 guy. Like that was his ceiling if he had stayed healthy. Maybe if he led Florida State to like a national championship, yeah, maybe he's a 2nd, 3rd-round pick. Like I think that was a real conversation. The injury obviously made him fall to round 5, but let's not pretend that he was this elite quarterback prospect before he got hurt because that was not the case. Now we get into a couple of guys. Actually, there's kind of a run here, really to the end of guys who I think maybe outside of Stafford and Darnold, but those are interesting discussions nonetheless, have a realistic chance to be in the quarterback conversation with the Jets. And we're going to start with a guy who, for me, Mike, I mentioned it earlier that I have 1 S tier. It's Justin Fields.
No, he can't be S.
This is not me saying that Justin Fields is the best quarterback on this list because he's not. Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Justin Fields. Matthew Stafford is obviously a better quarterback than Justin Fields. Kirk Cousins is in the same tier of quarterback as Justin Fields to me, and Sam Darnold is a better quarterback right now than Justin Fields, probably Russell Wilson as well. But as I've said since the beginning, the goal this year is not to compete. The Jets are not trying to contend for a Super Bowl. I'm sorry for fans that have. Look, we've all sat through it, but this team has not made the playoffs in 14 years. I would love for the Jets to make the playoffs in 2025. I don't think it's going to happen, and that was the whole Aaron Rodgers discussion for me. It centered around that point. I don't think the Jets are going to be competing for the Super Bowl. Maybe they can compete for the playoffs, depending on if a few things go right. But altogether, you're probably, in my opinion, not finding your starting quarterback option like long-term starting quarterback option this offseason. There are a couple of guys, I'd say there's one guy. Unless you're looking at the draft and somehow Cam Ward falls to you and maybe you take a chance on Shadeur or Jackson Dart or whoever. But if you're looking purely at free agency or the draft, and we're going to say Sam Darnold's not an option because he's probably not going to be, there's one guy to me who can not only be that bridge quarterback for you in 2025, but who can legitimately have a chance to be a long-term solution. Not a good one. I don't think it'd be a high probability, but has a chance to be a long-term option. And that to me is Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields played some of the most efficient football of his career last year in Pittsburgh, possibly at the expense of his explosiveness. I don't think he was quite as explosive of a player as he was during his days in Chicago. But I thought that he made some really noticeable improvements, particularly short accuracy was a lot better. He held on to the ball a lot, but I would say he threw less interceptions. The fumbles were still an issue.
He threw one. So.
Right. The interceptions weren't as big of an issue. The fumbles were still there. He just recovered, I believe, most of them. But I think he made some really important strides. And if you can harness that efficiency that he showed in Pittsburgh last year and get him to really kind of come out of his shell like he was in Chicago, I think there's a pathway to Justin Fields being a good starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm not ready to give up him as a prospect, as a quarterback player, as a quarterback prospect, as a player. He's also only 26. And we've seen in the past.
He's younger than Hendon Hooker.
He's younger than Hendon Hooker. We have seen in the past that there have been numerous examples recently of quarterbacks who failed with their first teams, went on and signed prove-it deals, signed whatever, short-term deals with other teams, be it Baker Mayfield, be it Sam Darnold, hell, be it Geno Smith, who much later in his career found success in Seattle. I'm not saying Justin Fields is going to be the next Sam Darnold, the next Baker Mayfield or whatever. I think there's a chance that he can be. And that chance to me is why I put him at S tier. And I would put him ahead of Derek Carr because of that. I don't think Derek Carr is a long-term option. And I don't think I would be particularly excited about Carr. I would be very excited if the Jets sign Justin Fields. And I think there's a real chance that happens.
I can't put him that high because, as much as I like him as a quarterback and an athlete, the guy's thrown for 3,000 yards and it's little than 4,000. He hasn't even thrown for 3. Like, there are limitations. There's a reason the Steelers aren't clamoring to bring him back, and the Bears got rid of him. So
I agree.
I can't put him on the S tier just because of S tier. Like that's based on if everything goes right, then Fields could be an S tier long-term guy. But a lot of hypotheticals in there. A lot of maybe this will happen, maybe that'll happen. I like him. I'd probably put him in A. I'd be very excited with him. I think him and Garrett Wilson would get along very well. I think this fits in with Aaron Glenn's directive that he wants kind of a dual threat running quarterback. So I would probably put Fields in A. You could argue about where. I'd probably be more excited for Cam Ward than I would be for Fields.
That's
personally.
I think if Cam Ward fell to 7, yeah, absolutely. I'd be more excited about Cam Ward at 7 than Justin Fields. We put him in A because I think both of us know he's not falling to 7, so you'd have to trade up for him.
But part of my excitement is just because he's realistic. Because everybody would say Matthew Stafford as a quarterback is superior than Justin Fields. So I'd probably put him at the end of A, but I'd still would be very on board with pretty much. I think the cutoff point might be Jameis. Everything above Jameis, I'd be happy with. Everything below Jameis, I'd have some reservations, even though I like Dart a lot. I think that's probably the cutoff. So
what about Jameis specifically? Would you be excited about Jameis?
Yeah, he'd be totally chaotic neutral for me.
Okay, he is. That's perfect. That's a perfect way to describe. He is definitely
8 and 9. Have fun. Come whatever may. Let's try it again next year. That's Jameis to me.
I'm fine putting Fields A tier. I don't think we're gonna have an S tier on this list because
Sam Shirazian. I'm sorry. Steelers are a smart organization. Why did they bench him? Because they had to play Russell Wilson and he wasn't playing lights out.
Yeah, and I think Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Justin Fields. I also think that Fields was a really bad fit for an Arthur Smith offense.
Yeah,
I think they tried to make him a game manager, and that is just not his game at all. And that's what I'm saying. If you could harness that efficiency that he was able to show under Arthur Smith, which is something that he'd never been able to do in the past, and you get him to do that, but also combine that with the elements of Chicago, Justin Fields, we might have something here. That's my take on that.
Garrett Goodlander, he can't throw the ball downfield. That's harsh.
No, I don't agree with that. Yeah. And another aspect that we talked about that we haven't talked about is the Garrett Wilson factor of this. Justin Fields.
I talked about it.
Wait, did you mention it? I just told you. Oh, I totally missed you saying that. Whoops, my bad.
The truth comes out. I can't believe it. I'm just white. No, I'm just Charlie Brown adult to you.
No. Listen, I swear to God. Okay, that's fine. That's terrible podcasting on my part. Well, that is an aspect to talk about because if the Jets want to keep Garrett Wilson happy, obviously the goal is not let's sign a quarterback that we know is gonna make Garrett Wilson happy. Like that's not necessarily the goal, but it's an added benefit of it. Like
I mean, you got to consider it. You got to manage personalities.
They played together at Ohio State. It makes a ton of sense to me. We won't put him S tier. I don't think we're going to have an S tier on this list, which is fine. We didn't have an S tier with the coaching thing.
Talk about Russ. Let's wrap up the Steelers.
Sure. We'll go to Russ next. Russ is a solid quarterback. Russell Wilson is still a starting caliber quarterback, a below average one, but a starting caliber quarterback. To me, he's a perfect B tier on this list.
Like for all the benefits we're giving Fields about bad situation coaching. I mean, Russ had to deal with that too, and he was probably better.
Do you think are you for him for A?
I would probably put him B behind Shadeur ahead of Jameis.
That is precisely where I was thinking of putting him. That is exactly where I wanted to put him because it's not going to be a high upside. Like
you get verticality with the moon ball deep throws. You get still some playmaking, not what he was in Seattle, but some outside of structure. He's not going to turn the ball over a lot. Experienced guy. For some reason, I don't know why Seattle hated his guts, but I don't hear any of those stories anymore about how people don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I think maybe he's made some changes in that area. I don't know. But I wouldn't be, if we're going to hype up Jameis, I mean, Russ is better than Jameis right now.
Russ is better than Jameis. Jameis is more fun than Russ, but Russ is good. Russell Wilson is a good starting quarterback.
He will be 37 in November.
I don't think the Jets are going to sign him. It sounds more like he's either going to go back to Pittsburgh. Vegas is an option, obviously, with the Pete Carroll connection.
I thought they didn't like each other.
I don't know.
We're not didn't like each other, but we're at the very least.
Cooler heads have prevailed. Years have passed. Pete Carroll's back in the NFL. He might want somebody who's familiar with Pete, with him to be his quarterback. I don't know, man. But
I heals all wounds, I guess. All right, let's do Kirk Cousins. Let's go to Jared Goodlander and Justin's favorite quarterback ever, Kirk Cousins.
Oh, because here's the thing. Let's have the Kirk Cousins discussion. Okay. I've talked about him a lot in the past, and I don't think that he's my favorite option. And you're gonna, this is gonna be vindication for me because I've been saying for weeks, like I'm not a Kirk Cousins stan. He's not my top option at all. He's not, because I'm gonna put him in B tier. That's where I'm putting Kirk Cousins. That's why I'm putting him in B tier. What was that?
That's way too high for me.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, damn it. I thought you were going to agree with me, but now I have to play the role of Kirk Cousins stan again.
I can't do it, Stephen A. I can't agree with you.
The selling point for me for Kirk Cousins was a couple of selling points for me. One, let's talk finances, because a lot of the reason he moved on from Aaron Rodgers was a financial decision. Kirk Cousins is going to be available for the veteran minimum. He is going to, assuming he's released by the Atlanta Falcons. Sam is saying no. Garrett also
the natives are restless. You better have some plan here. You got to pull out of your ass. Let's hear it.
The same shit I said. It is the same shit I said last week, right? He's going to be available likely for the veteran minimum. You are going to be already spending on Aaron Rodgers. I wish the Jets, and it sounds like they're not going to, but I wish they took the full $49 million cap hit up front and that they got him completely off the books moving into 2026, especially because the cap is skyrocketing. It went up even more than people thought this year. I would have much preferred them to just bring in a Kirk. And I'm not saying this is my preferred option, but like if they were to bring in Kirk Cousins, you take the full $49 million cap hit with Rodgers, and now he's off the books in 2026 because you're not spending on a quarterback anyway. Cousins would be for the veteran minimum. So that's, I think, one appealing aspect of Cousins. Something that we didn't get to talk about last week, because I think it came out either right when we were recording or right after. Kirk Cousins has spoken about, because that final 4 game stretch of last year was really, really bad for him. I don't have the numbers pulled up, but I can pull them up right now.
Touchdown, maybe 8 picks or something.
It was something like
picks. That's the concerning part.
He has said that he was dealing with multiple injuries during that time, that he got hurt.
Oh, how convenient.
He got hurt in the Dallas game is when he got hurt. It was his shoulder or something. He had multiple injuries, and that's the game he got hurt. Before that terrible stretch that he had leading into that Dallas game, he had 2 games in a row where he threw 4 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns. He had 7 touchdowns and no picks. Won both of those games in games where the Falcons scored a combined 58 points. Both games he completed 79% of his passes. And even before that, he was playing well. I mean, going back from that Tampa game to Dallas, that is 5-6 games in a row. He had, 13 touchdowns and 3 picks over a 5-game stretch. He was playing very well.
Isn't this, though, like you always said, like, well, you don't care about Aaron Rodgers playing well at the end of the year because he's old and he gets hurt a lot.
Aaron Rodgers, no. Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. The conversation with Rodgers was never how good is he currently, because I think Rodgers is a better quarterback than Cousins. It's all the other stuff.
But no, but like one of the big things I remember you were saying about why you didn't want Rodgers back. I don't trust him to stay healthy. He gets hurt a lot. Like part of your sales pitch for Cousins is, all right, ignore the first couple games because he couldn't move those first couple games. He looked like done those first couple games, and ignore the last 5 games. And just look at this like 5 or 6 game sample size.
What I'm doing here is selling him on beats here. I'm not selling him on my favorite option. If I was selling him on my favorite option,
even to sell him on that, that's basically all right. Ignore half the year and ignore that he got hurt.
I'm not saying ignore. I'm adding context to, hey, he was really shit later in the year. He was doing things that he normally has not done throughout his career. He was turning the ball over a lot. He was throwing a lot of picks like that. That's stuff that he has not done a lot throughout his career. He's never been a particularly high turnover guy. And I'd like to add context to that saying, hey, look, he was playing really well. And then he apparently got hurt. And this contributed to that. Now, again, I'm not saying that I trust Kirk Cousins to stay healthy for a full 17-game season, considering the fact that he's now going to be 2 years removed from the Achilles and he was banged up last year. I'm not saying that, which is why I'm not putting him as an A tier or an S tier option. I think a B tier option is fair, especially because, like, look, we have Jameis Winston in B tier. I would rather have Kirk Cousins than Jameis Winston as my starting quarterback in 2025. I think that Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston. I know that the raw box score numbers might not look particularly amazing with Kirk Cousins last year. I think he was better than that would indicate, and I think there's every reason, or not every reason, but there are multiple reasons to believe that he will be even better this year than he was last year, where he was still less than a full year removed from that Achilles injury. People forget, Rodgers tore his Achilles in week 1, and he was all the way back, already ready, quote unquote, to return by the end of that year. I mean, he had a remarkable recovery turnaround. By the time week 1 of the next year came around,
all that recovery for nothing.
But by the time week 1 of the next year came around, he was a lot further in his rehab process than Kirk Cousins was come week 1 of 2024. And I think we saw that early on, especially with Cousins, where those first few games, I was like, man, he might be cooked. Like he cannot move at all. It got a lot better as the year went on. The mobility got a lot better. And I have every reason to believe that in 2025, the mobility will be back. I don't think he's a particularly exciting option, but the selling point to him is, look, at least you can sell me on him being a starting quarterback more so, and sell not only me, the fan base, but also the players in the locker room. You could sell that more than you could sell Tyrod Taylor, or more than you could sell Jameis Winston, in my opinion. Cousins has been a good quarterback for a long time in this league, for a decade plus, I think, at this point. He's still, I think, got something left in the tank. I'm happy with him as B tier. I wouldn't argue for him to be A tier. I'm not going to.
I'd put him in my list. I'd put him in between Dart and Milroe at C. Because I'm trying to when I'm looking at Cousins, the pros and the negatives and stuff like that, the problem is I'm like trying to find ways where I'm like, well, yeah, I know he did that, but I know he's old, but I know he got injured, a serious injury, and did not look the same afterwards, but I know he's now picking up bad habits he didn't used to early in his career, but there's just so many. I think just stationary, standing in the pocket, throwing the ball, he's still pretty good, but there's just so many red flags. Even in a year where you're not trying to compete for anything, there's nothing about Kirk Cousins that excites me. There's the upside for Kirk Cousins off of last year is very low in my opinion, because I just don't see, even if he improves on last year, which I think he might, I don't think it'll be by much. It's still a rookie coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. It's still Aaron Glenn, defensive head coach. It's still, right now, they have one receiver, Garrett Wilson, and then Devontae might be gone, and now Lazard's going to be gone. So I can't really get excited about Kirk Cousins with this Jets team. So I can't put him any higher than like C.
A few interesting stats I just pulled up, because I really think, if watching him, he wasn't as bad as the numbers would indicate. The last few games of that stretch of the last final stretch of that season was really bad. But again, there's context to it now. Like, he was dealing with injuries. He was 17th in completion percentage over expected. Technically, actually above Josh Allen, which is kind of crazy for that stat. He was 18th in EPA per play. He was 14th in success rate. If you care about PFF grade at all, he was 22nd in PFF grade. I think he's a starting caliber quarterback at the NFL level still. I get the concerns with him. I'm fine putting him. I will concede and put him C tier. I will concede, and we could say high C tier. Is that, I think, a fair middle ground to reach? I want to put him ahead of.
I will concede.
Okay, I think that's fair. I feel weird putting Winston ahead of him because I really don't feel that way. But this is our tier list. This is the Jet Press tier list. So we both got to make concessions. All right, let's go to Marcus Mariota quick. I don't think this is an in-depth discussion. To me, he's C tier. I think he is a fine fringe starter / backup. He's better than Carson Wentz and Joe Milton. I think I'd put him probably towards the middle to end of C tier.
I put him above Kirk, behind Jameis, but in C.
I can't put him above Kirk. You rather have Marcus Mariota than your starting quarterback than Kirk Cousins?
You get a better athlete who turns the ball over less and isn't off an Achilles, and he's younger.
Marcus Mariota hasn't been a starter in how many years now?
2.
Like an actual starter?
Well, because he had the year in Atlanta.
Yeah, I guess. Whatever. He's going to be C tier.
C tier regardless.
Give me this one. I'm going to put him behind Kirk.
And I thought he looked pretty good when he was at Washington this year.
How many games did he even play in Washington?
I think he started 1 or 2 because Daniels was hurt.
Yeah, whatever. We'll put him C tier. I don't think that's going to happen. And I will say, boy, I'm not excited about a quarterback room with Marcus Mariota and Tyrod Taylor at all. Let's talk 2 options right now who probably high on the list, but are just not realistic options, I would say.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback on this list.
Would be S tier for me.
See, here's my take on Stafford. I think he's clearly the best quarterback on this list. I think he is the best QB that we have, that is here. I think he is still a top 7 quarterback, arguably, in the NFL. I just don't see why the Jets would trade for him. Not only I don't think it's
the asking price is reportedly a first.
Right. I'd be just like, why are they doing this? Because how many years does Stafford have left playing at this level? 2, maybe. Are the Jets going to be competing in 2 years, even with Stafford as their quarterback? I don't know, man.
I really do believe in Stafford though, just as a quarterback. I mean, he might be. What is he, like the second best quarterback in the NFC right now?
Is he the first best?
He's up there, right?
Who's better? Would you say Daniels, Hurts? I don't think Hurts is better.
I think it's those 2, right? Goff, maybe. I don't know.
Goff is in that conversation. The NFC sucks, dude. You could
Jalen Hurts is going to steamroll for the next however many years.
Fine. We'll put Stafford S tier. I'm fine with that. It's not going to happen, but I'm fine if we have an S tier. I'm happy with it being the best guy on this list. I would just be shocked.
Stafford and Garrett Wilson buddy ball doesn't excite you?
I would excite me. I would just be stunned, and I'd be like, I don't see how this fits their window because I don't think they're trying to win right now. So I'd be like, why are they trading first round picks? Look, if they traded their first this year for Stafford, I can't even be super mad about that because whatever pit player you get at 7, I don't know. Maybe you don't want to trade the 7th overall pick for Stafford, even in a terrible class. But I don't know. I would be stunned. But just in pure talent alone, he's clearly the best quarterback on this list. I'm fine putting this here. Darnold.
Oh, Darnold.
Sam Darnold.
Oh, Samuel.
It's a very interesting
grandson of Dick Hammer himself.
Yes. First of all, it's not going to happen. I don't.
It won't happen.
I don't think the Jets are sniffing around that market and willing to pay whatever he's going to get. And I don't think Sam Darnold's particularly interested in playing football in Florham Park again.
The sad part is if you just rip the logos off the side of the helmets.
Yeah.
Doesn't this seem like a great fit? If the
theory,
Jets just weren't the Jets or weren't in New York?
Yes. In theory, because he's what you want in Justin Fields, right? It's just he's a potential upside swing. He's going to be a lot more expensive than Justin Fields. And for that reason,
he's better right now.
He is. He absolutely is better. I'm in between A and B tier just because of the price tag that's going to be attached to him. He's clearly better than some of the guys. He's a better quarterback than Justin Fields. He is,
and he's not going to be what he was with Minnesota every single year.
And I'd be fine B tier for that reason.
B tier, but above Shadeur.
Yes, I think that's fair. Just because of the price tag associated with it, I hope that he finds success post Minnesota. I have my doubts that a lot of the things he was doing with the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell and throwing to Justin Jefferson, I have my doubts that that's going to work.
Sam says he's going to see ghosts again. Only in New York. He didn't see any in Minnesota. They must have exercised those.
Real quick, where do you think?
Must have the Ghost Adventures guys on to get rid of the demons.
Real quick, where do you think Darnold goes?
Raiders.
Ooh, okay. Maybe they could take a swing.
I think the Raiders get him, and they take like Milroe or Will Howard on day 2 because Chip Kelly, Ohio State.
I would like that for them.
I think that's their plan.
I think that'd be a lot better.
Well, they have O'Connell and Minshew still, so they have to get rid of one of them. But I guess you could do that if you wanted to.
Oh, don't threaten them. Like,
get rid of
Aiden O'Connell. Whoa.
Yeah, but you still gotta mechanically find a trade partner or whatever.
They have Desmond Ridder too, right? Is he under contract or is he a free agent?
I think he's a free agent.
Yeah. Whatever.
That's sad to see.
Last guy on the list, and it's the only. Well, Jordan Travis technically under contract. You could have fooled me.
As Brian put out though, they never took him off NFI, so they basically just paid him $400,000 to just like hang out in Jets gear.
They did, and hey, look, that's a good.
Pay us, we can do that. We'll happily do that.
I'll gladly rehab in state-of-the-art facilities for a year. That'd be great. Tyrod Taylor is the last guy on this list, and he is the only quarterback who the only guy who is guaranteed, I would say, out of every quarterback in this list, the only guy who's guaranteed to be on the Jets roster in 2025 is Tyrod Taylor. He's going to be there. He's going to be in the mix one way or another, unless the Jets sign a Derek Carr or a Sam Darnold, or if they somehow trade for Matthew Stafford. I think Tyrod Taylor will be in the mix to start. He will be in the conversation. There will be a quarterback competition. Even if the Jets bring in a Fields or a Russell Wilson, I think they will have a quarterback competition, and Tyrod will be in the mix. If he's the week 1 starter, I think that's pretty underwhelming, and I wouldn't be particularly excited about that. I'm happy with him C tier, high C tier. What do you think?
Here's the problem I have with Tyrod. Like if you just go through all like the fringe bridge guys.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, who do you think is going to have a better season in the same situation? Jameis Winston or Tyrod? Probably Jameis.
They have such different seasons. Tyrod would throw like 16 touchdowns and 7 picks, or like 15 touchdowns and 7 picks. Jameis would throw 28 touchdowns and 26 picks. It's so different.
If I were to say Kirk Cousins and Tyrod Taylor, probably Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. If we're ignoring health.
If I were to say Mariota or Tyrod Taylor, excuse me.
I think that's a more legitimate discussion. I'd probably lean Mariota, but I think
lean Mariota too. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I think it's a legitimate discussion.
See, I'd put Tyrod. I might just put him in D tier, only because
we can't put him in the Carson Wentz tier, Mike.
Only because I like the other bridge guys better. And with Dart or Milroe, then you get young quarterback upside. You get that whole gambit that comes with it, and you don't get that with Tyrod. Again, good backup. He's what you want as a backup.
Yeah.
But it's the same reason with Kirk. And I know this isn't something you can quantify, but the word uninspiring just keeps coming up with him. It would be so deflating and uninspiring for strap up. We're the New York Jets. We're built for this shit. All right, Tyrod Taylor, week 1. Go get him, Tyrod.
Here's
I can't get any. There's no juice there with him. There was when he was in Buffalo and he was in his prime. He just doesn't have that anymore.
Here's the thing for me with Tyrod, because if they bring in Tyrod Taylor, or obviously they have Tyrod Taylor, but if they roll with Tyrod and he somehow ends up as the week 1 starter, they're not going to he's not going to be the guaranteed starter going into the offseason, going into the summer. It's not going to be like, hey, we have to roll with Tyrod. If Tyrod is the starter, that indicates to me that they likely drafted somebody. That to me is okay. Maybe they brought in a Mariota and then maybe they drafted someone. If Tyrod is the starter, they didn't really have a Justin Fields. They didn't bring in a Kirk Cousins, a Derek Carr, right? Like, I don't think Tyrod Taylor in a legitimate quarterback competition is beating out those guys. I even a Fields, I don't think that's happening.
Well, that's why it's uninspiring too, because you wouldn't have brought in anybody either, and then you're rolling with Tyrod. That's tough,
right? But I think the guys that they would realistically draft are at least if it's any of the Cam Ward, Shadeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, and one of those guys is paired with Tyrod, I could get behind it more than I can Carson Wentz. Like I think that's a fine C tier quarterback room for me, because that's what's weird about doing this tier list is we're discussing each individual quarterback, whereas the better conversation would be like, hey, let's tier rank these quarterback rooms, but there's just infinite possibilities, so we can't really do that. I think a quarterback room of Tyrod Taylor, Jackson Dart, Jordan Travis, and whoever else, whatever. I think that's a C tier QB room to me. I think that's
Tyrod doesn't even crack top 5 faces the Jets print out on the season tickets.
He wouldn't.
He would not, which is that's not good if your quarterback's not on the season tickets.
I agree. I think I feel disrespectful putting him in Carson Wentz, Joe Milton.
Okay, maybe that's fair. Yeah,
I think C tier is fine.
C.
I think we could put him in the lower end of C tier. And at least he has a rapport with guys in the locker room. Like he I can't say knows the system because they're changing the system, but he at least knows a lot of the guys
he can
there.
pick up stuff quickly because he's been around.
Yeah, and he's well liked. I think that's fine. So to recap what might be our longest stream ever, let's just run through these really quick for the audio listeners. S tier is Matthew Stafford. A tier, we got Derek Carr, Justin Fields, and Cam Ward. B tier is Sam Darnold, Shadeur Sanders, Justin Fields, and Jameis Winston. C tier is Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, and Tyrod Taylor. D tier is Carson Wentz and Joe Milton. F tier, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Hendon Hooker, Daniel Jones, Jordan Travis. Boy, what a tier that is. Dare I say a perfect
suicide tier, many are calling it.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna get a warning on this video now.
As in the Jets are openly going to go 1-16 if they start one of those guys.
Dare I say a perfect tier list? I think we nailed it. I'd move a little things around there.
I might move Carr up a notch, but that might be it.
And then maybe I'd move Kirk Cousins up a notch if we did that. But I think this is fine how it is. I would love to see what other people think of this tier. Send us your tiers. Send us. It is a free or it's a publicly available tier thing on the tier maker. Boy, I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. My head is spinning. But there's the list. I just
caffeine, man. It's that iced tea Connor Long helped pay for.
I ran out of water like 30 minutes ago. I'm so
you're delirious. So all that Kirk take was just delirium.
Yeah,
you were just hallucinating.
I'm dehydrated. That's the issue here. That's
there
why
you go. See, Garrett, don't blame Justin here. He's losing his mind. He's looking out his window and he sees like a beautiful woman. And in reality, it's just like a dumpster. He's having like
in reality, it's Kirk Cousins.
It's a fat head of Kirk Cousins.
But yeah,
those are big fat heads.
Yeah, people still have those collected.
Really? I thought I haven't seen any. I haven't seen them advertised in 15 years.
I don't know. I don't see them advertised, but people have them in like man caves and stuff and like decorations in houses. But
I remember bugging my mom nonstop as a kid for a fat head wall grad. She never would get one.
What did you want? Which one?
It was I think it was somebody on the Yankees. I can't remember. My mom was too she's very into HGTV, and I feel like that might have clashed with her design aesthetic.
Are you a Yankees fan? Why did I know that? Did I not know that?
Yes,
I think I knew that.
You did know that. Yankees, Jets, and Nets. So just
I knew Nets.
Maximum postseason suffering. Just nonstop.
Look, Garrett says no Cousins, Justin. All right, look, Cousins is in C tier. All right, you happy?
Too late. You're already
not a
the Cousins guy.
How many guys were ahead of him? We put 8 guys. 8 guys were ahead of Kirk Cousins. Okay,
he's number 9 on the list. He's not even in the. He's barely in the top half.
On record, Kirk Cousins is at best my 9th favorite option. On record, okay.
He's barely in the top half of a list where like a fourth of it was joke guys.
Bring me Justin Fields. That's what I'm saying. Bring me Justin Fields. That's how I'll lead this off. Mike,
Brian says before we end the show, Brian says that the quarterback room will be Fields, Tyrod, Travis at the end of it. Maybe Tim Boyle finds his way home before the season ends.
No Tim Boyle. No Tim Boyle. That's fine. Well,
I think he's signed now.
You think he's what? Signed?
He's still on the Giants technically.
Did he sign a futures contract with the Giants?
I think he did.
I don't think he can because I think he has too much experience to sign a futures deal. I think that's how that works.
The fact he's going to be 31. He's still getting away with it.
I don't know, man. Gary said I've been all over Twitter tagging about Cousins. I'm not the Kirk Cousins fan.
It's too late. Now you are.
This show set the record straight. Okay. Kirk Cousins is no better than my 9th favorite option. Okay.
After I whittled you down, but yeah.
I put him C tier. I put him C tier. I think that's fair. But anyway, buddy, we've gone
Thank you for tuning in to the Jet Press Podcast. You know where to find us on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. Justin, now that our quarterback list is officially done, any final thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think another perfect tier list from the Jet Press Podcast. We only put out perfect tier lists. Send us your own. I put the link in the chat. So if you want to send us your own tier list, I'd love to see what other people think. Anybody putting Kirk Cousins A tier, B tier, hit me up. I'd love to see it. Also, I'm going to do a rare cheap plug here for a non-Jets thing. I was very lucky that last week, as we saw, I did the live stream not from New York. I was in Philadelphia because I was very lucky that I got to do another thing with Raising Cane's, and I was fortunate enough to speak with Saquon Barkley at that event, and I put together a really cool feature story that went up on our fan-sided sister page, Inside the Eagles. I will put this link in the chat as well. If anyone is interested in reading this, and we're plugging a non-Jets thing here, but pretty proud with how it came out. It is a feature story on Saquon Barkley, kind of his story, how he went from a local Pennsylvania guy to a hated rival in the Giants to an Eagles legend. I think it came out pretty well, and Saquon's an awesome dude. Like, he is just cannot say enough great things about that man. So yeah, check that out. Also, big Jets fan, Saquon Barkley. So maybe there's a connection there. He grew up a Jets fan. So anyway, I'll do a little cheap plug there before we sign off. But anyway, Mike, any final words before we say goodbye to the people?
Take us home, Mr. Fried.
All right, buddy. Until next time, thank you all for joining us on the show today. Go follow Mike on Twitter at @ByMikeLuciano. Follow me on Twitter at Justin Z. Fried. Follow the Jet Press and Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, like, hit the notification bell. You can also become a member today. It is 99 cents. You get your comments prioritized in chat, and it's a great way to support the show. 99 cents a month. Thank you to Connor Long and Butch Davis, who both donated today, each $10. Much appreciated, boys. Very, very much appreciated. We appreciate everyone, of course, who tunes in, listens, watches, comments, all that stuff. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Fried. That is Mike Luciano. We'll see you guys next time.
Hopefully, it's the last quarterback tier list we ever do on this show. Hopefully, they get one.